Zeitoun, page 116, Thursday, September 1st. By 6 a.m., Kathy had the Odyssey packed up and the kids buckled in. Her sisters were still asleep as she quietly backed out of the driveway, leaving Baton Rouge. It was 1,500 miles to Phoenix. Are we really leaving McKay? Nadamuth asked. Even Kathy couldn't believe it. But what else could they do? She had begged Patty to let her leave the dog there for a week. She'd given food and money to one of Patty's teenage sons to care for poor McKay. It was better than putting her in a kennel, and far better than trucking the dog all the way to Phoenix and back. Kathy didn't have the nerves for it. It was hard enough with 4 kids. They were beginning what would be a 3-day drive minimum, more likely 4 or 5. What was she doing? It was crazy to drive 4 days in a car full of kids, and making the decision without her husband. It had been so long since she'd been in such a situation. Well, she had no choice. She couldn't stay in Baton Rouge for however many weeks it would be before New Orleans was habitable again. She hadn't even begun to think about school, about clothes. They'd only packed for 2 days, or about what they would do for money while the business was at a standstill. Heading west on I-10, she felt some measure of relief in knowing that at the very least, on the open road, she would have some time to think. Out on the highway, she dialed the Claiborne house. Though it was hours before their agreed-upon time, she called in case Zeitoun had gotten there first and was waiting to call her. The phone rang 3 times. "Hello," a man said. The voice was an American's, not her husband's. It was gruff, impatient. "Is Abdul Zeitoun there?" she asked. "What? Who?" She repeated her husband's name. No one here by that name." "Is the 510 Claiborne?" she asked. "I don't know. I think so," the man said. "Who is this?" she asked. There was a pause. Then the line went dead. Kathy drove for a mile before she could even wrap her mind around what had just happened. Who was that voice? It was not one of the tenants. She knew them all. It was a stranger, someone who had found a way into the house and was now answering the phone. Again, her mind took quick turns downward. What if the man on the phone had killed her husband and robbed the house and moved in? She pulled into McDonald's and parked, calming herself down. She turned on the radio and almost immediately came upon a report from New Orleans. She knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't help it. The reports of lawlessness were worse than before, and Governor Blanco, in a statement directed to would-be criminals, warned that war-hardened U.S. soldiers were on the way to New Orleans to restore order at any cost. "I have one message for those hoodlums," she said. "These troops know how to shoot and kill, and they are more than willing to do so if necessary, and I expect they will." Kathy knew she should turn the dial before the kids heard any of it, but it was too late. "Did they say the city was flooded, Mama? Is our house under water? Are they shooting people, Mama?" Kathy turned the radio off. "Please, babies, don't ask me questions." She steeled herself and got back on the highway. Determined to drive straight through to Phoenix, she just had to get to Yuko, and she would be okay. Yuko would settle her. Of course, Zeitoun was okay, she told herself. The man on the phone could have been anyone. There would be nothing unusual about people sharing a phone. Most of the city's landlines had ceased to function. For a few minutes, she was calm, but the kids started in with the questions again. "What happened to our house, Mama? Where's Daddy?" This got Kathy's mind going again. What if the man was her husband's killer? What if she had just spoken to the man who had murdered him? She felt as if she had been watching from above the convergence of forces on her husband. Only she knew what was happening in the city, the madness, the suffering and desperation. He had no television, couldn't know the extent of the chaos. She had seen the images from helicopters, the press conferences. She had heard the statistics, the stories of gangs and rampant crimes. Kathy bit her lip. "Babies, don't ask me right now. Don't ask me." "When are we going home? Please," Kathy snapped. "Just leave it alone for a minute. Let me think." She couldn't hold it in anymore. She could barely see the road. The lines were disappearing. She felt it coming on and pulled over. She was blind with tears, wiping her nose with the back of her hand, her head against the steering wheel. "What's wrong, Mama?" The highway flew beside her. In a few minutes she managed to gather herself enough to pull into a rest stop. She called Yuko. "Don't drive another foot," Yuko said. Within 20 minutes the plan was shaped. Kathy stayed put while Yuko's husband Ahmad looked into flights. Kathy only have to make it as far as Houston. Yuko arranged for Kathy and the kids to spend the night at a friend's house there. Ahmad would fly to Houston immediately, and in the morning he would meet her there and drive the family all the way to Phoenix. Are you sure? Kathy asked. I'm your